welcome to option 5. How are you today?
So good. So good.
So good. Well, everyone, you may be used to hearing Dan Linhart's voice with me on this podcast, but today we have a special guest. Mary is one of our product designers here at Crema. Mary, you've been here for how many years?
Almost 2 years.
Almost 2 years. That's you. I'm not great at dates. I'm not great. It could have
I'm
been like
not either. We're
seven
throwing out a
years.
generalization. Yeah.
Yeah. So you've been with us for a couple of years, incredible designer, working on multiple product teams, and then has been really helping the growth team as well. So a lot of the assets that you've seen for Crema.us and for even some of the Option 5 stuff has been yours truly. So I thought today we would take some time in the context of a world that is changing.
Oh, yes.
An environment that's going remote. You just recently got back from just in time, honestly.
I know.
Wow.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about where you went on your trip, and first we'll just talk about how you got a chance to actually work from your travel. So tell us a little bit about that first, and then we'll jump into the
Sure.
framework.
Yeah. Well, I really admire Crema, how we have a results-based culture, and had been kind of wanting to test the boundaries a little bit with going somewhere and working from another country. I have a bit of an adventurous spirit, and I'd kind of been wanting to push my own boundaries of solo travel. So I'd never gone on a big solo trip before and had always wanted to visit Copenhagen.
Mm.
And so, yes, I had just started doing some research. I have a friend who lives there right now, and I felt like it was a good time to go. Talked it over with Tyler at Crema and just figured out if it would work or not. I know a couple other employees at Crema have done very similar things where they'll go on a big 2-week, 3-week adventure and then maybe work a week there or a couple weeks. So, yeah, I just started having a conversation with him about it and it made a lot of sense. And I just decided to say yes. So I went to Copenhagen for 2 full weeks and worked 1 full week there, and then did a little bit of travel to Amsterdam, a little bit of time in London. But it was a crazy, interesting, very incredible experience. There was a lot of self-discovery, a lot of discovery with how I work. And it definitely pushed the boundaries of kind of my comfort zone in work and life, to work remotely for a full week. So it was a cool experience.
So it forced you to maybe have some different disciplines, which we'll
It
get into.
definitely did.
Yeah. Well, if you're just tuning into this podcast for the first time, and you haven't been listening to the previous episodes, which you should totally do, Dan and I have been unpacking, basically trying to put words and vocabulary to how we've been working for the last 10 years, how we think about things, how we think about the paradox and the tension and the elements that are in play, and what makes incredibly successful teams and a successful company in the face of a changing world. And we came up with this framework, although we've got to work on this, Mary. We've got to come up with a better name because we haven't really named it yet.
Yeah.
but effectively, we've thought about this idea of a framework that has 3 things kind of in play. So elements, pillars, whatever. 3 things that are in play. And those are structures, disciplines, and postures. Structures are things that are more permanent in nature. I would have said office spaces are usually structures. They're things that don't like to change quickly. So oftentimes corporate hierarchy is a structure. I think our bodies are structures, right? So like we have our bones and our muscles, and they don't like to change fast. And when they do change fast, it hurts, right? Because then that means you've broken a bone or you've torn a muscle. And it can be repaired. It just takes a long time and a bunch of new disciplines to repair it. We just went through this. I think we're experiencing a little bit of a structural change real fast right now, and having to go remote because of a global pandemic. That's a structural change. It hurts a little bit right now, right? So those are structures. Disciplines are the things that we do. the habits that we have, the way that we work, the rhythms that we create when we set up for 2-week sprints or daily stand-ups, or you getting out of bed when the first snooze goes off, or you working out or meditating, or whatever these structure, what are these disciplines that shape the way that we handle the structure we're in, and then our mindsets or our postures towards it all.
Mm,
So the third piece is postures. So posture is like just what I said. It's mindsets, it's feelings, it's ways of thinking so that we can do the best work of our lives, right? Or we
mm,
perceive that we're doing the best work of our lives. But one of the big postures that you'll hear us say at Crema is humble confidence, right? We want to have humility while still being confident about the work that we're going to get done. So thinking about those three things in tension, or in paradox, or whatever word you want
right.
to use there, I want to talk to you a little bit about, first off, what do you think about these three things, and then also, how does that play out in your daily, role here at Crema on a cross-discipline team, which of course we talked about
Hmm.
previously on the podcast, or working remote now, or working remote in Copenhagen. So
Yeah.
let's open it up a little bit. What does that look like for you? I'm going to keep it high level, and then maybe we can dive into those as you unpack it. What do those postures, disciplines, and routines look like for you on maybe a daily basis on your normal teams?
Sure. So I was kind of thinking about structures a little bit. Well, actually, this is maybe my first introduction to the framework.
Yeah.
Maybe more in
We've
person.
we've
I've read
told
about
we've
it a bit.
toured more people in the world through our podcast than we have told people internally. So
Yeah,
this is a revealing how
it's
much we
cool. No,
probably tell people inside the company too.
it's good. I was getting ready for this podcast and I went back and listened to all of the podcast episodes that you and
Wow.
Dan did. First of all, they're amazing. They're great. And I feel like they just dive right into it. And maybe that's the best way to introduce everybody at Crema to the framework. But it was awesome.
Good.
Yeah, so I have a little bit of background. But it's been kind of fun to think about, like maybe it's my visual brain, but I'm
Mm,
very much thinking about like what informs what in postures,
yeah.
discipline, and structures.
Yep.
And then also, I've been trying to toy with the idea of who's maybe responsible for what element.
Yeah.
Like, I feel very responsible for my posture. I think that's an incredibly individual thing at Crema. And it's hard for an organization like Crema to come to me and say, you have to be a certain way or you have to think or feel a certain way.
Yeah.
So it's so individual. You agree with that kind of? Because I'm curious what your
I
reaction to this idea that I've come up with is.
so I think you're right, though I would explore a little bit that I think that all three of these elements have a play at both an individual, a team, and an organizational level.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you're right in the fact that primarily a posture is going to be um, how a person feels and how their mindset interacts. But if you think about the hive mentality, we're
Right.
watching that happen right now on Twitter or globally, right? That we're now thinking as a global mind, not as a singular
Mm,
mind. So, how do we think more of our teams as a hive mind that also has a posture that is shaped by our collective postures together? Does that make
right.
sense?
Yeah,
And then I
that's
think
really good point.
that's also true of the organization, of course, at scale.
Sure. Yeah, that definitely adds another layer. Because I've been thinking kind of like posture is my own attitude, then the discipline is maybe comes out of posture.
Mm,
So if you have a posture of curiosity, then your disciplines will relate to learning and growing. And it's definitely self set disciplines, but then your organization kind of comes alongside you and helps you with those disciplines.
right.
So at Crema, I've found a lot of um, you have to put in like 60, Crema puts in 40, or maybe 80/20.
Sure.
Like I'm kind of driving my own disciplines and structures and rhythm, not structures, that's the wrong word, but rhythms and kind of that time management side of things and how I want to do my day. But then Crema comes alongside me for a lot of that. And then the structure to me feels a lot bigger than me. I'm
Yeah.
obviously a part of it, but it's very Crema centered. Like my space is from Crema. My values and mission
Mm,
and
mm-hmm.
vision is set by Crema, and I get to be a part of that, but it's not like my kind of vision coming into that. So does that kind of
I think
resonate?
this
I
is
don't know
good.
if I'm
This is a really
responding the same way.
no. This is so good because it's so interesting. You know, Dan and I kind of started to worry that are we drinking our own Kool-Aid, that we are only seeing through a lens, so we're convincing ourselves of how this all makes
Sure.
sense, like, you know, perfectly across the way. I think yes, that is true, that there are a lot more structures set by the environments that are outside your control. I think we're on an individual level. I would encourage anyone, even if you were doing something where you just kind of, I'll be careful with the word counseling, but if
Right.
you're spending time talking to somebody and you're thinking about what are the structures in your own personal life that shape um, the effectiveness of how you get your work done, right?
Mm,
So you might have a structure of a commute or the lack of a commute right now, or you might have the structure right now for us of maybe just health, right? So your
mhm.
health is good right now, so you can do a lot more. You can have a more positive posture, and you're not held back for the disciplines that you can partake in. But if your health is low, or if you've been injured in some way, your structure changes personally, and
Right.
your disciplines and mindset have to change because of that structural change. So I think it can play out on any level, but you're absolutely right. In the business context or in the work team context, oftentimes the structures are defined by leadership or by the organization as a whole. But I was going to go back to something you said earlier, which was I feel like the structures are set by the people around me, or you said set by Crema. And my
Mhm.
question for you is, who is Crema?
Mm.
Right. So what structure is being created? Is that something you believe that it's Dan and I have written it someplace and made it? Or is it something that is a collective of the people around you?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's mostly a collective, um, because I don't think if you and Dan wrote down the values that you didn't see in your employees, it
Yeah.
would work.
Yeah.
And so I think it is a collective. And when I think about the structures that matter to me the most, it's definitely the value system that Crema as a whole, as a collective, has, that, and then like the space. And so
Mhm.
that is maybe set by you and Dan or decided on by you and Dan, but it's a space inhabited by the collective of Crema, all of the people. And so I think, and culture is like a structure, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Kind of
I think
loosely.
culture can definitely be a structure. I'm questioning of whether or not culture lives right in the middle.
Yeah.
It is what we're defining.
Right. That's true, I guess. Cause I was like, it isn't, it's definitely informed by all of these things. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think I'd say structure is mostly the collective, but you and Dan have a loud decider voice in that collective.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm part of that too. Like the thing I missed, I think the thing that changed the most when I was working remotely in Copenhagen was the structure for me.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Because I'm in a new place, I'm in a new time zone, I'm in a new, even just space, like
Right.
my workspace, and some of the technology I had was even different. So it all changed, and that was the thing I missed the most, being abroad. And when I came back, I was like, oh, I'm back in my home, like I'm back with my
Yeah. Yeah.
people. I have that kind of rhythm of life again that feels very, it's just very, it's the structure of my job.
Right.
And so that feels pretty collective to me.
So, how do you think that plays out? So, you're defining it definitely in the context of how it plays out for you just as an individual, as a part of an organization that works this
Hmm.
way. How does it play out on your teams? How do you see postures or disciplines or structures play out on your cross discipline teams? So, the teams that you're working on, both collaboratively with the client or in house.
Sure. I think I notice a change in the posture and the discipline depending on our product, the stage we're at in our product life cycle.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
as a whole, like when I think about posture, there's definitely maybe a collective, if we're thinking about collective posture,
Yeah.
there's maybe a collective posture of curiosity right at the beginning and failing fast and discovering a lot of things. And then maybe towards the middle or the end, when we're really just boots on the ground, getting things done, trying to build something, there's maybe more of a collective posture of like excellence and just doing the work really well.
I
So
love
I
that
don't know
you
if
went.
that's,
I love that you went there because I thought there'd be a posture of grit, just get it
oh,
done.
yeah.
Like, like
Excellence.
you were like, but excellence is what we strive for. I was like, yeah, that's not what I was thinking,
Yeah.
but totally the right answer.
A bit of grit too. It goes a long way.
Yeah, yeah,
They go hand in hand sometimes. But
yeah,
yeah, I think that I see that mostly in posture. I think disciplines, it's nice for me when team disciplines remain the same,
yeah.
depending on where you're at in the product life cycle. Like I rely on um, our retrospectives that we have once or twice a week, a lot. And so having that same discipline of how are you feeling? How are things going? What should we change? What are we doing well? Is so, so, so helpful. And I really, really rely on that. Yeah.
I
Let's see.
think, man, you hit on it. Retrospectives, I think, is one of the primary tools to measure almost all these things,
Mm,
because it's in a retrospective that you slow down long enough to say. And for those that don't know what a retrospective is, because we've talked about it in previous episodes, but it's this idea of pausing your work awkwardly, so a little bit, because you feel like you should still just be doing, but you have to stop for a second and say, what's going well, what's not going well, how are we feeling in all of this. Not everybody asks that, but we do at Crema.
mm-hmm.
And what can we do to get better, right? And making decisions, making action items in order to actually optimize and continue to evolve the way that we do our work. And it's such an important thing to do. And so I, in a talk that I give about this, which I've given a few times, I talk about like retroing all the things.
Mm.
I joke that I actually retrospect my kids at the end of the day. I don't say, look, kids, it's time for your retrospective. It's more like, hey kids, what went well today? Who made you smile? And then
Oh,
like, what was the hardest thing you had to do today? And then what are you excited about for tomorrow? Those are just simple questions at dinner or wherever we are. That is really a retrospective, but because it's about reflecting and then
mm.
preparing. So I love that you named that, because retrospectives are such a powerful tool.
Yeah, and it's just nice having a rhythm too, like knowing that there's a space to talk, that there's people that you can go to, and
Mm-hmm.
there's kind of a dedicated time for that is just really, really nice on a team setting.
Yeah, it's really good. What are some of the if you could define a structure that you think you see, and I know this is the one that's a little harder to define, honestly.
Mhm.
What's a structure that you see inside of your team, or maybe in collaboration?
Mm.
Yeah, I'm just going to leave it there, inside the
Yeah,
team.
okay.
What are things that don't change very often, maybe aren't all of the doing, but are things that constrain you in a good way or in a bad way?
That's a good point. I think if we get really tangible with this, I find, well, and this is getting a bit personal, but on each team or on each project, each product has constraints of what technologies we're using.
Mm.
What are we, mobile or are we desktop app? Like even we could get, I don't know if that's too literal of a
No, I think
structure.
that's perfect.
Okay, yeah, like that's what I think of. I'm like, okay, well, this one, the structure is this is um cybersecurity. And so that's a whole nother realm of ideas that we're dealing with, of constraints we're dealing with, risks we're dealing with, and questions that we're asking on that team. But this one is global consulting. So it's a totally different kind of world, different questions that we have to ask here, different clients, different users that we have. So I don't know if that's, yeah, it's pretty broad, but I think users, technologies, and format probably helps constrain the product a lot, and the team that's working on that. And I
And
find it, sorry.
no, go, keep going.
I really have fun being on multiple products because I'm on 4 different products right now, and it's so much fun going from structure to structure, I guess, because you've got different constraints and it's like this new playground to work in and be creative in a totally different way. And so, yeah, I really enjoy that.
What disciplines do you put in place, though, in order to facilitate making that switch? Because that switching cost can be pretty
Yeah.
heavy, because now you're talking about changing structures on a regular basis, which if anybody can handle it, Mary, I know you can, because you're just you're the most collaborative and empathetic person I know. But I guess maybe when you start thinking about your postures and your
Hmm.
disciplines, what of those two, if you can name them, do you think helps you to make those switches so easily?
Sure. I think discipline, at least for a couple of them, I time box when I'll be working on those projects.
Yeah, good.
So I'm like, especially when I used to be doing a lot more of the growth team work. And so that was a big switch because it was marketing versus product design,
Right.
totally different kind of fields and industries even, and totally different users. So I would really box my time. So the morning was spent on product and the afternoon was, oh wait, maybe I got it mixed up. But I did one in the morning and one in the afternoon.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, and it was really, really helpful because my clients knew that that's when they would be able to reach me the best. And it fit better because I there was a bit of a time difference too between us. And so it matched their schedules better, to be working in the afternoon and ready and available. And then the morning, I just felt like there was a lot more kind of collaboration and a lot more people in the office for the growth team and people that I could just ping if I needed to. So I kind of time box my life a little bit. And I still try to do that with each product that I'm on. It gets a little bit trickier when you add more than two or three
Yeah.
to box that time well. But it helped a lot when I was going back and forth between growth team and product design. Um,
And if you got
yeah,
into the nitty gritty of that, you had to make a discipline of communicating that with your teams too. Like, hey guys, I'm not going to work on this today because that I'll have
mm-hmm,
dedicated time tomorrow to work on that, or expect that I'm available today if you want to chat. I think you do a good job of that, and the team as a whole does a pretty good job of setting those expectations about availability as well.
right. And that definitely reminds me of a posture that you have to have related to that discipline, which it took me a while to get to this place where I didn't feel guilty about not being available all the time.
Yeah.
And so you have to kind of let go of that a little bit and be okay with not being available for every single person at all times of the day. And then also over communicating, I think, is a posture. And maybe that's just having integrity or communicating with openness and honesty. But that was huge for me. And even saying to a client, like, it was uncomfortable sometimes to say, sorry, I'm not going to be available for you right now.
Right.
But I know Crema supports that really well. And I think that's rare and cool. And our clients respect that really well because I'd rather have them know that I'm not going to be there and have better conversation and communication later on than them get frustrated that I'm saying I'm available, but I'm actually not, or I'm not going to be able to give them good communication back.
I think
Um,
I think what you're sharing there is so important for our listeners, especially people that are in the service space or even people that are on a product team in general, because they serve someone inside the organization. The desire for us to want to create a discipline that appeases the structure
mhm,
instantly is detrimental to us actually being able to do great work. And it's really easy to just sit on email or Slack or whatever it is and just be ready to instantly respond because we've been trained to do so. And then what we do is when we're doing that, we actually train our clients or our users or whoever to expect that level
mhm,
of instant response. So we've actually trained them to have a new discipline, which is anytime you ask, I will jump as high as you want. And
right.
it actually doesn't serve them very well because now you're jumping between so many things that you can't serve them well.
Yeah.
So I think that's really key, and I think a lot of people could learn from that. That's a discipline that most people aren't willing to lean in the discomfort of going, I'm
Mhm.
gonna say no for right now, but wait until tomorrow, and I'm totally yours.
Well, it took a lot of falling on my face to get
Yeah, yeah,
there,
yeah. That's
of
fair.
overcommitting and just kind of getting anxious. So, yeah, I think it is something I'm still trying to learn today too. Like, okay, you can say no sometimes, and people respect that.
Well, I mean, even before we jumped on this podcast, there was somebody on the team that reached out and said, "Hey, I need to talk about something right now." It was like, can you wait 45 minutes? I'm doing a
Mm-hmm.
podcast, just being clear with that and saying, hey, I want to be available for you, but I just can't right now.
Yeah.
Good, good. What about What about when you go back to remote, when you start thinking
Mm,
about the disciplines, now you're in a new remote setting, kind of forcibly, and I guess in some ways because of the whole, again, coronavirus and COVID-19. What do you think is going to be some of your new disciplines or postures that you're going to try to have in this new structure?
sure. Well, first of all, I know there's a lot of team members at Crema who've been remote full time. And so they can speak to this much better than I can, who just went for a week abroad. But there are things that I learned from that. And there's also things that I'm expecting to need to learn. And so I'll be reaching out to them for much more kind of feedback and help.
That's
Um,
great.
yeah, because I'm definitely not an expert in working remote. But working remote in Copenhagen, definitely kind of the structure floor underneath me kind of shook a little bit. And so I had to readjust, especially when it came to disciplines of time management. That was
Mm,
huge. And I mostly felt that with the time difference that I had there and managing when I did each kind of like going back to each team and each different structure of my different products, managing this time from now, instead of it being 9 to 12, it's going to be 3 p.m. till 5 p.m. or something
yeah,
like that.
yeah.
So kind of balancing and restructuring the day for a time difference. And I think that will also apply to this new remote 2 week stint in making sure that I don't maybe work beyond when I should be working or taking time to go have lunch. And just kind of making sure that I'm like balancing my time well while also working and living in the same space. So that was kind of interesting. And I think I'm going to need to make sure I'm doing that well. Um, I don't know. Let's see what else.
What if you went into kind of our new context of social distancing? This idea that we have to have a whole new set of structures, disciplines, and postures. What do you think that's going to look like, or what tangibly do you think that looks like that we're gonna have to change looking forward?
It's gonna be interesting. I mean today was like the first day of social distancing for
Yeah,
Crema.
this is day
First,
one,
yeah, day one
ground
of
zero. Yeah.
2 weeks for the foreseeable future. But so I went in and got my things from the office and had to reset up a space in my house. And I actually had to move because I was living with my grandma. And so I moved out of her home because I don't want to infect her. She's
Oh my
89.
gosh. Yeah, I didn't even think
Yeah.
about that. So I didn't realize you moved.
Yeah, it's no big deal. I moved back in with my parents and it's great. I love it here. But
Cool.
things changed because of that because now I'm living with 4 people instead of 1.
Yeah.
And so I'm in a totally different space, had to kind of organize my life around a new space to work from home in. And I also think, well, this is personal, but when I work from home, because Crema supports work from home very, very well, when I do that, it's very much like a day that I'm like, okay, I'm going to get so much done. I need to be alone. I need to just like head down and just knock through so many things.
I know
And
where
it's
this is
usually,
going.
yeah, it's very, very effective. It's great. But I think I'm going to really miss having the people around me, that structure that I'm used
Yeah.
to kind of pull me out of that a little bit and not
Yeah.
be so heads down all the time and just like pummel through work. And I think I'm going to need to learn new ways to find that. Crema has already today just made me so happy in the way that we've been like sharing pictures of our lunches
I saw
on
that too. It's
Slack.
cool.
It made me so happy. And like our big full team remote call just brought me so much joy because you're seeing everybody in their space. Like, I think it's going to be a time when we all are going to have to extend ourselves and try to put ourselves out there and interact with each other in this digital space rather than just me going to Steph's desk and chatting with her for 20 minutes to kind of get a
Mm-hmm.
break from
Mm-hmm.
whatever my brain was kind of getting through. Um, so I think that's going to be a new challenge is finding the time and the people to interact with and kind of step out of your mind for a minute and out of that deep work. Um, because that's usually where I go to work from home is like I need that deep work. And now it's
Yeah.
going to be
Yeah. Yeah.
deep work all the time.
Right. Please let me have some surfacey work just so I can,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So
No,
that'll be interesting.
I think it is. We're going to have some new normals, right?
Hmm.
This will shape our postures. I told Dan on the last podcast, I said, I think what we're going to have to do is dial some of our postures up to 11 to kind of
Hmm.
compensate for this new change in structure, at least for a period of time. Meaning we're going to have to get super intentional about taking pictures of our food and sharing it with each other. We're going to
Yeah.
have super intentional about reaching out to do a Zoom phone call or responding appropriately in Slack. It's going to be different. We're going to be super disciplined about like getting up and walking around because
Mm,
there's no social context to say, I'm just going to go walk over, grab a cup of coffee and talk to people on the
right.
way. It's like, no, I'm going to go grab a cup of coffee and go right back to where I am. I think all that's going to have to
Yeah.
be new disciplines we have to have in place.
Yeah. I think I'm curious to see how the, I guess, posture of transparency is going to be used
Mm.
in this season because it feels like what I'm doing isn't transparent to anybody because I'm not sitting next to them. And it's like,
Yeah.
do they know that I'm working? And so there's this weird, like, internal battle of, like, I have to be at my desk all the time so they know I'm working and, like, respond to every Slack message in a second, kind of like what we were talking about before.
Overcompensating a little bit too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I'm curious to see how we can be transparent really well for our clients, like making sure they do know that, but also not like over the top saying yes to every single thing
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
we're not in this environment of we're just here and maybe I'm making a pour over and you can see that I'm at the office, but I'm
Right.
not like at my desk. Um,
Yeah, I think that's really key. That's a good word. I think that we're going to have to figure out how to balance that the right way.
mhm,
And I think we'll probably find that rhythm. It's just kind of tuning that in, right, and kind of paying attention to what we're paying attention to.
sure.
Um, One thing I don't know that we didn't get a chance to talk too much about this, and I want to wrap up here soon, was there is this other part of the framework, which I'm sure you've heard, which we went through if you listen to all the podcast episodes, which talks about this idea of going through and paying attention, um, collecting ideas, then making a decision, testing those ideas, of course, iterating on those tests, and then actually teaching. And I think this is an opportunity where we're going to learn right now from
Mm,
you already said it. We're going to learn from the teaching of the people that are already remote.
yeah.
We're going to have to pay attention to what we're paying attention to so that we're like going, okay, what are our disciplines? What are our new rhythms? How's my mindset right now? Am I actually in a good space to do the best work that I can? Those are things we're going to have to be more attuned to because our structure just changed so fast.
Mm,
It'll be really intentional right now. And I think
yeah.
if anybody's ready to do it, I know that our team is for sure.
Yeah, I'm actually really excited. I think the same way we are talking about how a new structure creates new constraints that kind of builds creativity, like same exact thing is happening right now. We've got a whole new structure, whole new set of constraints,
Yeah.
and people are getting so creative about new disciplines to enact, new postures to kind of adopt. And I think we're just going to grow so much internally, personally, and as a collective, as Crema. So I'm excited to keep learning through this.
Oh, don't you all wish that you had somebody like Mary on your
Oh my
team?
gosh.
Just teasing. No,
No.
this is she represents in many ways just a collective that the whole team is really thinking like this right now, and I'm really proud of everybody at Crema stepping up during a challenging time.
Oh yeah.
And I really think there is still yet a lot to be unseen. We don't know yet what the next 3 to 6 months to a year is going to be for the company, for us individually, for us as a world. But I think that there are some new normals coming, and this is going to be part of it. So
Mhm.
I'm hoping we can think about those structures, disciplines, and postures, and how they apply across both individually, teams, and organizations. So,
Right.
well, Mary, I really appreciate you jumping on today. This has been a lot of fun. Even with the new, we thought we were going to be in a studio. Instead, we're doing a call, and we
This
made it
works
work.
great.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. As usual, thank you guys so much for listening and subscribing to our podcast. If you can, leave us a review on iTunes. Not everybody listens on iTunes, but if you can go over to iTunes and leave a review, that's how we get found out a little bit better. And if you really want to share it, share it. So grab the link for wherever you're listening to it and share it on social media or in your Slack channel or wherever you're connecting to people. We're hoping to really put out a lot more content right now, leaning into this space of remote and how we think about our structures, disciplines, and postures in that environment. But it's people like Mary and the team at Crema that are really building organizations where we can do the best work of our lives. And it's awesome. I love doing it. So thank you for listening. And until next time, we'll see you then. Thanks, Mary.
Thanks, George.
Bye.
My name is Alexa Alfonso, and I'm the growth team lead at Crema. I'm essentially the project manager for all of our marketing initiatives, including this podcast. And I work with a cross-discipline team of content creators and strategists to expand Crema's presence, attract new opportunities, and promote our thought leadership in the digital product space. I enjoy working at Crema because it's a company that truly values people. I've been lucky enough to be a part of the team for almost 5 years and have seen firsthand how our core values play out on a daily basis. And we have a lot of fun along the way. Option 5 is a podcast by Crema, a digital product agency that creates web and mobile apps for disruptive companies and industry leaders. We believe that design, technology, and culture can help create a world where individuals and companies thrive. Learn more at crema.us.